Well, here we go. Gonna get the ball rolling on the old 73 Dart here. It's my first car. It's my high school car. My dad and I built it back when I was probably 15, 16 years old or so. The goal for today is to get the K member dropped out from underneath this thing. I think I'm gonna start out by getting the lower valance, the bumper, and the grill pulled off because those are in pretty nice shape and I really don't want to damage them. So let's get started. Say hi, Buster. I thought there was a lot more holding that in. Nothing. It was just kind of sitting there. I'm amazed it didn't fly out when it was on the back of the trailer on the way here. Progress. You want to help? Good boy. Okay, so I got the front valance off, front bumper, the grill off, got the car jacked up in the air, pulled the wheels off, put some jack stands underneath here with a good old 4x4 post, kind of hold her up in the air. And should that happen to fall, because I'm going to be underneath this thing monkeying around, I put an extra pair of jack stands up here to kind of, as an oh shit safety device. See, somebody's already been in here scraping away undercoating and whatnot. I went to look and somebody has already done me the favor of backing off the torsion bar bolts. So I'm finally getting a good look underneath the car, and man, I mean, I knew somebody put new floorboards in it since I owned it. And when I owned it, the floorboards were rusted out. We just had pieces of like scrap metal glued in place. But man, like, they went under here and cleaned things up, got things primered. Got some subframe connectors put in. Pretty nice. My next step is going to be to pop out the torsion bars. And they've already done me the favor of leaving the torsion bar retaining clips out. So I'm going to take some of my favorite cologne here and kind of get things lubricated. Ready to get these things popped out. Now some may ask, how do you remove the torsion bar? I'm sure I know there's tools to do the job, but I don't have those tools and I don't feel like leaving the house to go get one. So what I do have is one of these. It's called a bearing separator. See, this is your torsion bar. So what I'm going to do is slip my bearing knife up here. And secure it like that. Get a couple of nuts on here. We're improvising today. Like so. Oh. Get that guy kind of clamped on there good. That will get us a good bite out of that torsion bar. And take your big fancy hammer and apply force. Ta-da! So my next step was to drive out the roll pin in the steering linkage here, but looks like the last guy kind of already did it for me. Okay, so that steering union is disconnected and pulled back. I am going to go ahead and remove the steering column because I need to do that anyway for the engine swap. This is a column shift car. The shift linkage has been disconnected, and I don't plan on reusing it because, well, 3 pedals are funner than 2. But we do have a nut there, a nut there, and then 3 down here on the floor that need to come off. Well, now that the column is more or less removed and the coupler is uncoupled from the steering box, I think my next step is going to be to remove the power steering pump and hoses. And I don't really plan on reusing this power steering box because it is way too big for the Hemi swap, so it's going to be converted to the Borgeson box. So I think I'm just going to snip these 2 hoses off. Pro tip: if you have a small herd of farm cats like I do, you occasionally buy kitty litter, get the kitty litter in the jug and then just cut the top off of it or cut the side off, and boom, you got a drain pan. That thing will hold like 2 gallons. Power steering pump's out of the way, so now my next step is going to be the upper control arm. So I've got the choice. I can either separate it at the ball joint, or I can separate it up here at the pivot bolts. I'm going to have to remove the A-arm anyway, and I kind of want to pull this whole thing out as much of a chunk as I can at one time. So I think I'm going to go for the pivot bolts, get some more of my favorite cologne. Oh yeah. Let's get her all nice and good in there. So those control arm bolts came out surprisingly easy, and man, I got like a good feeling about this car. I think she's ready for a new lease on life, and I think she's glad that it's me working on her again, and I'm much less of a hack than I was in the last 20-some years when I was a 15-year-old kid, didn't know what he was doing. So anyway, I think I'm down to just the 4 K-member bolts. I'm going to put a jack underneath it, pull the bolts out, and slowly and gracefully lower the K-member down onto these Harbor Freight moving jacks. If you're a guy like me, as in you're not like physically strong, those moving dollies are worth every penny. K-member bolts came out really easy. Now I'm just trying to get the whole contraption to slide out that way. Just like that. And there we have 1 K-member assembly. Took about 3 hours worth of power washing and soaking and scrubbing to get the grease off of this thing. So I think the next step is I'm going to remove the power steering box because it is going to be getting replaced with a Borgeson unit. Okay, here we are looking at the bottom side of the K-member. This is the pitman arm. There's the steering box. I had to remove this nut. Then I use this contraption to pull the pitman arm off, so I can slide that out of the way, because there are 2 different sizes of sector shafts. There's a 1 1/8 and a 1 1/4. And before you can order your Borgeson box, you have to know which one you have. So we're going to take our super awesome calipers, and I'm going to measure the diameter of the sector shaft. I'm going to get it down to the bottom. It's a tapered shaft. So 1.25 equals 1 1/4. It's another day, and man, I'm having a little hard time kind of getting up and moving this morning, so cheers. That's good stuff. But first thing I gotta do is I'm gonna build a jig to get the K-member up off of the ground so I can get to working on it. So let's go. Eyes and ears. Uh-oh. I don't think she liked that. I appear to have overloaded the circuit breaker. Okay, game on. I built a jig to hold the K-member. Basically to hold the K-member up off the ground and to also locate my suspension components as if everything were installed in the car. Because there's going to be some parts I need to fabricate to make this engine swap possible. And this is going to make things a lot easier when I can work around it, rather than putting the K-member in and out of the car a dozen times. The first thing I need to get to working on is the oil pan. Now yes, there are several companies like Holley that sell oil pans and oil pan kits that make this swap much easier. Problem is they're like $400 and I'm poor right now. The other problem is nobody has those parts in stock. Everything's on back order. So I figure I want to see if I can cut this truck oil pan to make it work for my application. And if I ruin it, oh well, I'm not out anything. It's just going to go to the scrap iron bin anyway. So what I need to do is, right now it's a rear sump. And if I try to put it into place where it would be as if it were bolted to the engine, the sump hits the steering linkage. So what I need to do is I need a mid-sump oil pan to fit inside of this cross member and to fit within the steering linkage. So what I'm thinking about doing is cutting along here and seeing if I can fabricate a sump to move it into the middle of the pan rather than the rear. So I think my next step is going to be to bolt the pan to the engine, bolt the engine in the K-member, and see just where I need to start making some cuts. Okay, just wanted to throw out this public service announcement. Using the Holley motor mounts for the 73 to 76 A body, there is a small casting feature on the block right there. You can kind of see it running up and down. And again, well, right there. If you just bolt this motor mount up, it will hit that mount, or hit that casting feature. You see where there's a little nick in the paint? Right there. That will cause this mount to not sit flush, and it will actually kick it out just a hair. And then the motor mount bolt will not line up there. It throws it off about 1/8 of an inch. So just come in with a grinder and cut a little notch in your motor mount so that it will clear that little casting feature. Knowing is half the battle. The other half, violence. It's in. Don't worry about that steering linkage. I'll fix that later. And that's going to get fixed when I get the oil pan fabricated. Well, I think that's about everything I wanted to cover in this video. We got the K-member out of the car, we got the jig to build it up, engine's mounted up in the K-member. If I could do anything different, I wish I would have built the jig to be a little bit taller. I kind of had a hard time getting the engine hoist in here to get the engine set down in the K-member, but you live and you learn. Next step, I think, is going to be fabbing up the oil pan and also fabbing up a mount for the power steering pump. You know, I'm just a guy in his garage. Spent all my life playing with old cars, working in the garage and building stuff in my free time. And I just thought it might be fun to kind of record stuff and document it and put these videos together. So we'll see where it goes from here. All right, thanks for watching.